Hi, everybody. This is your old pal, Uncle Hondo, your Sports Illustrated Las Vegas Raiders beat writer and host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. Now, Matt Hladek joins us each and every week. He's a media member from thespun.com. He covers the National Football League um, from a macro position, which is overall the whole league. I cover it from micro, talking Raiders. And today's show is all Raiders. But before we go anywhere, I got to explain something to you, Matt. So I used to get ripped uh, because my glasses shine. Okay. So people are like, take your glasses off. So I have a little note on my computer, take your glasses off. So I would always take my glasses off when we got ready to start. Then it started to become a drinking game with people. Take a shot every time Hondo takes his glasses off. So now
Yeah, I leave mine off
fans are
too. I guess that glare can be troublesome, so I leave mine off as
fans are
well.
fun, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They make it worth it.
Raider fans are the absolute best in the world, man. All right. You saw it. It went completely viral yesterday. My interview with Bill Polian. On a Mount Rushmore of general managers, you certainly, I mean, this is my thoughts. You got Ron Wolf, Bill Polian, Al Davis, Bobby Beathard, and Venisi. I mean, I don't know how you can have any better than those five. I think you can argue about the place of all five. I personally would have Al Davis at one, and not because I cover the Raiders. I just think what he did in his prime was outstanding. Bobby Beathard was so good. Ron Wolf, to me, if he's not 1A, he's one, he's two. With Polian, man, he dropped some truth bombs. And I want to ask you about a few of them. He talked about paying your guys what they're worth, not being cheap. But he talked about financial accountability in a locker room. That your locker room knows if you're underpaying a guy, but they also know if you're overpaying a guy. And that does not go well in the locker room when guys are overpaid and getting paid more than other guys and servicing more. Your thoughts on that? I thought that was a brilliant insight by Polian.
I think that's true, and I think it's something that you have to kind of take into account, particularly not just when you're paying your own guys that you drafted and signed, but people that you acquire in free agency or via trade. You always have to kind of take into account not just how their salaries are going to balance against the salary cap, but how they're going to look within the confines of your locker room because the players know who the best players are. They know who the team is most dependent on. They know who's providing the best effort and leadership and all of those things. So you try to have your salaries commensurate with in line with all of those categories as best you can because you know, if not, then you can run into problems with, um, certain issues. Everybody knows for example, if you have a quarterback and quarterbacks are the highest paid players, typically, I think every football player acknowledges they know the reality of the finances of the different positions. But if you have a quarterback that is, paying a lot of money and doesn't seem to really be delivering on it, or there's questions about what their ceiling is or how far they could take you, that could cause a lot of backlash in the locker room when you have to worry about how it's perceived. So I think there's definitely, to borrow one of your favorite terms, germane. It's germane to the building of an NFL team.
That's part of the drinking game. And Matt,
Yes.
you and I have been doing this almost 20 years. Am I really that predictable?
No, no, we talked about it before, so I'm just kind of busting your chops a little bit.
I'm trying so hard too, man. I it's fun now because now it's become they're just wonderful people. All right, switch directions a little bit. Polian is considered one of the best quarterback drafters of all time. Of all time. I mean, he picks Jim Kelly, he picks Peyton Manning. Um, Two guys for their eras that you can argue were the best of their era. I think you could argue it. Don't necessarily think it is accurate. I think Tom Brady's better than Peyton, and I think there's a couple guys in Kelly's era, but you could make the argument. And he didn't swing and miss in the draft. He was a great drafter and evaluator of talent. And when he made the comment, when you're getting ready to pick a guy, if you're not sure, you've got your answer. You don't pick them. You go with guys you're sure of. And to me, I just thought it was so simplistic. It was such a Bill Polian answer. Everyone says, well, he's kind of dry. He's not dry. He's cut and dry. He just knows this is what works. I don't take those risks. I don't do foolish decisions. What'd you think of Polian's comments there? I thought those were very telling.
I think they're they're accurate, and I think it's especially something that you take into consideration at the quarterback position, the most important position. Listen, we know quarterbacks bust. We know that teams miss. Probably, I don't know what the statistics are or how you evaluate it totally, but teams miss more than they hit on first round quarterback picks. It seems like, at least in terms of finding stars and finding real top of the line guys. But if you're taking a quarterback early, you don't just take one because you need one or because the pressure's on, you have to take one. You should take one because you're absolutely convinced that this is your guy. Now, will it work out? Will you have gotten the evaluation correct? Maybe not. But you can't just take someone to take someone or feel like, well, we don't have our guy right now at the position. So let's hope that this guy we pick is going to be that. No, you have to believe, you have to have conviction. I think it's especially true of the quarterback position. I think it also trickles down to other spots as well, at least the more important positions on a football team. Your left and right tackles, your cornerbacks, your pass rushers. Those are guys that you have to really feel solidified about, that you're getting an impact player and you're getting somebody that's going to be a good fit for your culture and is going to be a long-term solution for you. So I think that in general, especially when you're drafting early in the draft, you have to have that belief and that conviction in the player you're taking. It's one thing if you're taking a flyer in the 7th round. Hey, it's a lottery ticket. If it works, it does. Great. If not, it's just no big loss. But if you're picking early, you need a guy that you believe in.
All right. Now, I was not ignoring you, but sometimes when I'm not looking at you, fans will say I'm ignoring you. I'm getting my next question ready. Rick Gosselin, who
Yeah.
is considered by many the greatest NFL writer of all time. Yeah. I give him credit as the inventor of the mock draft. He says he's sure somebody probably did it before him. So he prefers perfecter, but he is the inventor, in my opinion. He happens to be my mentor. He wrote an article for us a couple days ago. I want to read part of it to you because it was, in my opinion, one of the best articles on pro football I've ever read. And I'm not waxing loquacious. I'm being truthful. Tim Couch, Jamarcus Russell, Zach Wilson, Ryan Leaf, Rick Meyer, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, Blake Bortles, Joey Harrington, Akili Smith, and Heath Schuler were all selected in the top 3 picks of the NFL draft since 1990. They played a combined 50 seasons with no Pro Bowls, no Super Bowl rings. They started 454 games, lost 30 of them, and threw 429 touchdowns and 492 interceptions. Now, I'm going to go farther. Quote, Andrew Ware, David Klinger, Jake Locke, Josh Rosen, Blake Gabbert, and Matt Leinart were all selected in the top 10 of the draft since 1990. No Pro Bowls, no rings, no rings as starters. They started a combined 136 NFL games and lost 95 of them. Gabbert has been the most successful of the 14 quarterbacks mentioned above. He had played for 12 seasons and with 6 teams. He lost 35 of his 49 career starts, but did pick up a Super Bowl ring last year as a backup with Kansas City. Goslin's article was phenomenal. Do people really know what an NFL quarterback looks like? I mean, that puts it in perspective in a big way, doesn't it?
It does. And again, like you said, you feel like, for every Peyton Manning, there's going to be a Ryan Leaf. For every Matthew Stafford, who was the top pick that worked out phenomenally overall, you get your Jamarcus Russell, and then there's all types of guys in between that. I think what it does, it shows. I Quarterback's a tough position to evaluate, and I felt that when I used to cover college and recruiting, and you'd look at tape and watch high school prospects. Now you're watching, you bring it up a level to the NFL, watching college prospects, and just reading and following draft analysts and different writers that I trust and admire their work. You get some differing opinions on guys that are consensus top of the line guys in their given year, but you know they this one writer feels this way, another writer feels that way. It's a really tough position to evaluate, and I think that some of those guys you mentioned had talent that was out of this world, that was as good, if not better, than some of the successful QBs that were their contemporaries. But maybe they have a fatal flaw or two to their game that can't really be worked out at the next level. Maybe they go to a bad organization that doesn't do a good job developing QBs, and they don't get that early coaching to get them out of their bad habits and get them to play their best, and it screws them up. Maybe they have something with their mental makeup internally. They're not necessarily cut out for the position, or they don't have the preparation that's needed, things like that. There's so many different factors. And I think that when you see it laid out as starkly as he did with the stats to back it up, it shows how it's such an inexact science drafting in general, but especially drafting quarterbacks.
I got to tell you, I've done this a long, long time. I think I'm okay at it. I don't think I'm great at it. I think I'm okay at it. And that's why with me, I don't give my opinion. Occasionally people will ask, but what do you think? I really listen to the guys that are part of my life who have proven it, who've picked made good quarterback picks consistently, or who have picked great running backs, whatever. I used to laugh when I covered college. Glenn Mason, who was the coach at Minnesota and one of the most underrated coaches in college football, in my opinion, but just did a great job with Minnesota. Anyways, an offer from him to a running back was very, very big to me. Brett Bielema, now at Illinois, an offer to a offensive lineman was a big deal to me because they knew how to evaluate talent. Nick Saban, if he offered a defensive back, you could just. I know very, very, very successful college coaches. Big, huge names, some in the Hall of Fame, some going to be in the Hall of Fame, who literally said to their scouting staff, any defensive back with an Alabama offer automatically gets one from us. Automatically. Just because Saban's so good, if he offers, we offer. And they just hope that whoever, waited to commit, that Saban was full so they could eat the scraps off of his table. Mm-hmm. And I had one guy literally say to me, I've had 2 or 3 guys go on to the pros that I didn't know anything about, but we offered, and Saban had already accepted his limit, and they came to us, and boy, they made me look really good as an evaluator. And I'm like, ooh. I try to pay attention to those guys. I think that's important because as media, my opinion doesn't matter. But our job is to get people to disseminate to them information that from people that have a systemology that's great of evaluating. Wouldn't you agree?
It is. I think that's why there are some fans that always, when they see certain mock drafts, or they see certain reports around the draft, mm-hmm. and they don't like what they're reading about their favorite team, or like who the the writer has their team picking, and you'll see them on Twitter yelling at the writer or whatever, and the writer will say, "Hey, I'm not saying this is who I would pick, or this is who I think they should pick, or whatever. I'm saying this is who I think or know based off my intel that they will pick. We know, we're not necessarily doing the evaluating or building the team, but we talk to the people that are, or talk to the people that know enough about the people that are to make these kind of informed guesses about what's going to happen." So I think that is important. It's not necessarily about what the media thinks with quarterbacks or draft prospects. It's all about what the teams think, and the media's job is to at least as beat writers, to disseminate that info. Now, there are people that make their careers as being draft analysts, and they basically are scouting these guys too, so they're giving you who they think is going to play well in the NFL, and who they think is maybe a little high, too overrated or underrated, depending on what the consensus is. But if you're a beat writer, you're really, even if you're doing your own evaluating and your own scouting and watching tape, you're more so going to be giving the info based on what your sources tell you than just what you feel in your opinion.
My last mock draft, I've been saying all along, I expect the Raiders to draft a quarterback. In my last mock, I didn't have them taking a quarterback. And there were some people that became unhinged. One guy in particular, I just sent his email off to law enforcement. I just could not. I mean, how can you tell us all year that there's going to be, that you think they're going to pick a quarterback, then you put a mock draft? And I tried to explain to him the mock draft's done by executives that I trust, and each of them give me, hey, I know the Raiders need a quarterback. I don't think there's one here at this place, or whatever. It's fascinating to me. All right, I want to turn to the case for Michael Penix. Wonderful kid, just salt of the earth. Everything you love about CJ Stroud is Michael Penix. Just terrific human being. He's also a very, very talented quarterback. But injuries, both shoulders, both knees, and any orthopedic surgeon will tell you what an injury there, you can recover, but you're never 100%. And it's like when a hip goes out, you almost always are going to have a hip go out again. There's everybody I know who judges quarterbacks absolutely loves the kid. I mean, who judges quarterbacks correct?
Well, yeah,
successfully. Every one of them is like too big of a risk. It doesn't matter how much you love the kid. Doesn't matter if you want him to be your son-in-law. You don't risk. Now, it's like somebody told me yesterday. Somebody will probably pick Penix way before where he should be picked, and he may hit. But for everyone that hits, there's 15 that don't. That is the part of the draft to me that's so amazing, isn't it to you?
It is. And the other thing you have to take into account with him to a lesser extent than the injuries, and if he's athletic enough and the age and things like that, is he's a lefty. There's not very many lefties, so you have to make sure, your offensive line is configured where, okay, is my blindside protector good enough? Now, again, blindside, as important as it still is, the non-blind side, which is right tackle for most quarterbacks, left tackle for Penix, is also very important because you have a lot of edge rushers that line up over the right tackle or line up inside, things like that. So it's not necessarily just about you need a blindside protector and that's it. But you do have to worry about how does your offense change for a lefty QB? Is your line configured the right way where you can protect him, especially if he's not the most mobile guy? But getting to your overarching point, yeah, that is the most fascinating part of the draft in some ways, because again, it goes back to what Bill Polian said. You need a quarterback and want a quarterback, but is it the right move there? The Raiders have a young guy, Aiden O'Connell, and they have Gardner Minshew to compete.
And Anthony Brown.
and Anthony Brown as well. I think yes, I do think they could use another quarterback to add to the mix, a young quarterback. But
I do too.
where does it make sense for them to do it? You know, if they're not gonna trade up from 13, um, does it make sense to take someone there at 13 that is a bit of a stretch? And then you say, okay, well, we're not going to take one in the first round. All right, well, is there someone in the second round that we even feel is worth it, especially compared to a lot of the other talent that will be there? So I think you need to. That's one of the things you have to balance out. Quarterback's the most important position, and it's the one position that you have to get right. But you don't just want to reach or go for any old quarterback in the draft. And Penix to me is fascinating because I think he has, I mean, his arm talent is phenomenal. He he has the experience, he has the leadership skills, he has all the intangibles. He's a guy that I think if he had a clean bill of health or even less, not fully clean, but just not as much drastic injury concerns, he's a top 10 pick, probably top 5 maybe. But this stuff could drop him in. It'll be really interesting to see where he goes and what that team does with him and how he pans out.
All right. So, what did you think yesterday when Polian, and it shocked me because I've felt this way all along, but I've never heard a GM say it. When he said to him, your right and left tackle are equally as important. You don't hear that a lot. You hear about the blind side. I thought that was powerful.
Right. And I think it's something that has been changing and evolving recently in the NFL because forever the blind side was the most important position. And it made sense. Your quarterback, most quarterbacks are righty. Your left tackle, the QB can't see that literally he's blind. He cannot see, he can feel, he can sense it, but he can't, see that pressure. And for a long time, a lot of the best rushers lined up over the left tackle. So you need a left tackle to neutralize it. Obviously, the left tackle is still of paramount importance. It's the most important position still on the line, I would say. But like Bill Polian said, your right tackle, if left tackle's here, right tackle is either right below. It's a huge deal. And the reason is this. Well, yeah, the quarterback can see that pressure coming from the right side, but now you're getting a lot of teams that hunt matchups, and they will line up their best pass rusher over that right tackle if the right tackle's um, less proficient. You see that the Raiders will do it with Max Crosby. They move him around. We've seen that T.J. Watt is over the right tackle a lot for the Steelers. Going back decades, Michael Strahan lined up a lot of times over right tackles with the Giants. You will have the best pass rushers sometimes over there, and a lot. And the other thing is, the best teams don't just have one guy; they have 2 or 3 guys that can wreak havoc. So you need to have somebody that can hold up on that right side as well. So that's why what I agree with what Bill Polian said is that it's not just like, well, you need a good left tackle and then you can kind of just stick whoever over there on the right side. No, you need a strong right tackle, and because of the diversity about where teams line guys up, and because of how there's a lot of good interior pass rushers now in the NFL. That's why, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that's why you're seeing guards and interior linemen command more money and be bigger attractions in free agency, because teams are saying the quickest way to get to a quarterback is right up the middle. And teams are saying, we need to be able to stop that interior penetration. So you're seeing the way that offensive lines are talked about and built evolve a little bit in the NFL.
Agree with you. A couple more things I want to ask you about. I'm not in any way reporting this. I don't believe it. But I was asked the other day by an NFL executive, what would you think if Harbaugh called up the Patriots, said, listen, I'll give you Justin Herbert. I want pick 3. And I thought, well, I know that he really likes Herbert, but I know he loves J.J. McCarthy. I'm not reporting that, but it is intriguing. Your thoughts?
It's funny. I had a friend of mine who's a Giants fan text me probably about a week ago and say, is there any way that Harbaugh would trade Herbert and the Giants could trade for him? And because Harbaugh wants J.J. McCarthy. And I was like, man, that's a pipe dream. I don't see that happening, but it is fun to talk about. We do know that obviously he loves J.J. McCarthy. Um, it just would be such a crazy move. I know you can restart the clock and your rookie QB deal, but Herbert is just, and I think J.J. McCarthy has the ability to be a good pro quarterback. But Justin Herbert already is one, and Justin Herbert has more talent than McCarthy. He could be, I think, that franchise guy. It would be, I think, a foolish move. It would be the boldest move that I can remember a team making at quarterback. Now, granted, you could say that if anyone's going to do it, it's Jim Harbaugh because he just doesn't care what people think and he's going to do things his way. But I don't see it happening. But one of the things I
I
do
don't
find
either.
fascinating with Harbaugh is this. You talk about, unstoppable force against the immovable object. And the Chargers forever have been this just snake bit franchise. They're not totally hapless. They have talent. They've had good teams over the years, but something gets them. They blow the games late. They have injuries. They just you can't trust them. And so that's the unstoppable force there. And then you look at Jim Harbaugh, who anywhere he's gone, he's won. Um, Now Michigan was the first time he won a championship, the whole championship. But he went to the Super Bowl and two NFC Championship games with the Niners. He won the Pac. Not, I guess it was 10. I don't know if it was 10 or 12. I think he won the Pac-12 at that point. It was 12. Now it doesn't exist anymore with Stanford. He went to one of Rose Bowl. So, you know, he has all these things on his resume. Is Jim Harbaugh going to be able to continue that with the Chargers, or is the Chargers curse or whatever just too powerful that even Jim Harbaugh can't stop it?
So, there is an NFL executive who's been responsible for picking multiple Hall of Famers. Okay, multiple. Who has been in the league a long time, who is at J.J. McCarthy's workout. And for the record, not a Wolverine fan. Well, I guess he might be, but I mean, he's not a Michigan grad or anything like that. I don't think he's a Michigan fan. Who told me, I mean, he's been to multiple pro days of great quarterbacks. And he told me wasn't even close. Best workout he's ever seen. His accuracy, his delivery, he gets rid of it quick. He told me he gets rid of it like Dan Marino with the power of John Elway. And he said, I walked away from that draft. If my team needed a quarterback, that's my guy. When I first picked McCarthy to the Raiders in the second round in my first mock draft, I had a quote from a general manager, and it happens to have been him, that said to me, this is where you get him today, but by the time his pro days and combine and everything comes, he's going to be at the very top. So here's my question. How shocked would you be if Jaden McCarthy is not in the top three?
Because of the fact that you have Drake May and Jaden Daniels, two other quarterbacks that have gotten considerable hype and considerable, you know, buzz this round, this draft cycle. I wouldn't necessarily be stunned if McCarthy isn't one of the top three picks because it depends if teams like those guys. Now, I will say this: I would
That's
be
only two. That's
well,
why I
Caleb.
said top three.
Well, Caleb Williams is going to go one, so that's what I'm
But I'm
saying.
saying Caleb and Jaden, I think, are 1, 2. My question to you is how shocked would you be if he's not three?
I guess I could see a team preferring Drake May over him, so it wouldn't stun me totally. Um, I would be very shocked if he's not off the board in the top, if not in the top four picks, in the top six, because I still think there's a very good chance the first four picks are quarterbacks. and I think it's extremely likely that 4 quarterbacks go in the top 6 somewhere. So I think that if he's not in those group, I would be surprised. Especially because it seems like he's really been his stock has been vaulting over the last few weeks. Uh, you know, especially after the Michigan Pro Day, like you said.
All right. So let's do a mock draft. Is there any argument? I think we all know that Chicago is going to take Caleb.
Yep.
I think we all know, I've been reporting for weeks, Commanders are going to take Jaden.
Brian Kelly basically let that slip during the LSU Pro Day, I think, too. He kind of said that it's going to be Jaden Daniels to Washington. So I think that we're in agreement there.
Okay, third, Patriots. I think J.J. McCarthy.
I don't buy that they're not. I'll put it this way: I don't buy the reports unless somebody gives them an absolute Godfather offer. I don't buy the reports that they're going to trade out of that pick. They need a quarterback. They have a new head coach, a new era. They want a quarterback. So I think it's going to be either Drake May or J.J. McCarthy. And I can definitely see McCarthy, especially with the way he's been trending.
JJ. JJ. All right. So then you come to the fourth pick, which is held by Arizona. Heretofore, they've not traded, and they've made it clear because I've talked to guys who said they've talked to Arizona. They know who they want, and all eyes are on Marvin Harrison. Okay. But Minnesota wants that number 4 spot bad. They want to move up and get Drake May. Minnesota craves Drake May. Josh McCown coached him in high school. They want Drake May. So let's assume Arizona trades, and I think Minnesota takes him at 4. If Arizona just refuses to trade, then I think they trade with the Bolts and get him there. So either way, I think you're looking at your first 6 picks are 4 quarterbacks and 2 wide receivers. Your thoughts?
I think so as well. I think that again, we talked about the top 3 teams. I think are going quarterbacks, no doubt. Minnesota has made it clear they're angling to trade up for a quarterback with the way that they acquired another first round pick. Arizona is committed to Kyler Murray still, unless the Chargers pull off a stunner. They have Justin Herbert. The Giants have been linked to a lot of quarterbacks. There are some people who think that they would take one at 6. There are some people who think that they are that them being linked to all the quarterbacks doesn't that is more of a smokescreen because they want one of the top receivers, either Harrison or Malik Neighbors, and they think that could push them down to him. Not saying that they're satisfied for the future with Daniel Jones and Drew Lock, but just that they're not going to take a quarterback that high this year. But I think no matter how I would say I think the top 6 picks are going to be the big 4 quarterbacks and the big 2 receivers, Harrison and Neighbors. So that means
a lot of fun stuff going on in there.
That means that the draft kind of gets really interesting starting at 7. That's when I think you would start to see maybe Rome Odunze, another receiver, come. That's the area where he could go. That's where the lineman Joel Shanu can go. That's where you'll start to see some defensive players like
Turner.
What happened?
Dallas Turner.
Dallas Turner. I couldn't think of his last name. Terry
Byron
Arnold.
Murphy.
Byron Murphy. Yes, those guys. You'll start to see them to be in the mix.
And don't forget Fuaga.
And Fuaga, yes, he's. I said Alton Fashanu, the 2 tackles, but Fuaga is right there with.
Let me just tell you something. That Fuaga, man. Love that kid's game. I love the kid. I love his game. I'm just telling you, Katie bar the door on that one, my friend. That guy, he's a stud.
He can play. He can really
A
play.
stud. He has a motor, man. He's a lot of fun. All right. That is the great Matt Hladek from thespun.com. Make sure you're reading The Spun. Matt, tell everybody your Twitter handle, please.
Sure, you can find me on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, at Matt Hladek 919, MATTHLADIK 919. I'm always up for some followers and some interactions, and I'm always on there discussing the NFL and sports in general. So come find me.
All right. Remember, find me on Instagram when you go to Hondo SR, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, when you go to @Hondo Carpenter. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And make sure you keep it tuned right here to the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It was a great ending, and now I can't. I'm sorry, but I got to try it again because I didn't hit the stop button for the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast.